Hi, my dear friends. We are discussing about the power of speech, power of public speaking. If you have not subscribed to this channel, please do. See, when it comes to public speaking, the purpose is to really ignite the audience. The more powerful the speech, the more will be the ignition. Let's say whether you are a salesperson or a political leader or a lawyer arguing a case or an employee discussing with your boss for a salary rise. How you present your case is very, very important. So in this episode, we are going to talk about energy and public speaking. As I mentioned to you, I wrote a book, Connect, and I'm trying to deliver a few chapters from that book. When it comes to motivating others, igniting others, it's not how long you speak. The Gettysburg Address of Abraham Lincoln, it makes such a big difference. You know how many words were there in that speech? Just 274 words. And he delivered it in just 3 minutes. Following Abraham Lincoln, Edward Everett spoke for nearly 3 hours. But the power, the energy that Abraham Lincoln brought in just 3 minutes with just 272 words, that made a big difference. He managed to memorize the fallen soldiers' name. There were about 8,000 people died in the War of Gettysburg. He was able to memorize the names. This speech led to the eventual end of the war by just 3 minutes. 272 words. This is the power of speech. This is the energy you need to bring in. One of the quotes of Aristotle, the energy of the mind is the essence of life. As I said, the purpose of public speaking is not to just drive home your point. How do you drive your point home is very, very important. I thought I can give you some few tips. Point number 1 is energy is a mental status. You are communicating from heart to heart. You are communicating from mind to mind. First, find out the overall objective of your speech. If it is to convince, then how are you going to convince? What are the facts? Are you convinced first of all? If you have to convince somebody, are you convinced? If you are convinced, alone you'll be able to convince somebody. This is an important part. The second point is, unless and until you have a passion to public speaking, you cannot deliver a powerful speech. Please take it from me. Ultimately, you should love your public speaking. Because in the later episodes, I'm going to give you a lot of examples, ideas, how to collect data. For a few minutes speech, maybe you have to work for hours. Unless and until you have the passion, you are not going to make it. The third point is, believe in what you say. Do not argue on a point if you are not personally believing it. Believe in what you say. If you don't believe, you cannot make others believe. If you cannot see, you cannot show it to others. If you don't have, you cannot give. Simple. For example, if you are going to give a speech on how people should behave during the COVID period, until and unless you believe that you should wear the mask, until and unless you believe that you should cleanse your hand, until and unless you believe that you should maintain social distancing, you cannot make others to believe. So the energy that you bring in is a direct function of how much you believe in it. And the last point is, you cannot convince others if you are not convinced. You cannot convince others if you are not convinced. There are ever so many speeches. In fact, I will try to bring in these episodes at least one speech in every episode. And I would strongly suggest that you go to the YouTube channel and log in the name of the speech and you can see that speech. For example, in the previous episode, I talked about Lee Kuan Yew's speech. You should see him speaking. You should listen to his speaking. You should go and observe his body postures, his gestures, his facial expression, the way he communicates. You can go to the YouTube and find out the Gettysburg Address by Abraham Lincoln. Maybe you may not be able to see a video because video may not be there those days, but definitely you should be able to find the words The audio file should be there. Energy is the essence. So what you're going to do as an exercise today, back home exercise is, write down a speech, take a theme and deliver a speech for about a minute. Combine the point that I mentioned to you just now. Set up a video camera, maybe your smartphone is good enough, and deliver a speech as though you are addressing an audience. Then wear a headset and listen to your speech. Assume that you are not the speaker, somebody else is speaking. Assume that you are a part of the audience and you are listening to his speech. Rate yourself on the energy level and find out on a rating scale of 0 to 10 how much you will give yourself on this aspect of energy. As I mentioned to you, the purpose of public speaking is to convince, to motivate, to make others to act in a particular way. You should learn a lot from the politicians. Every day, make it a point to listen to one speech or other. As we go along in this episode, I'll give you a lot of ideas. For example, what is a metaphor, what is a simile, how to tell a story with emphasis, with emotion. Telling a story, can you make others laugh? Telling a story, can you make others to cry? That is the power of speech. So in this episode, we saw what is the link between energy and public speaking. If you are not subscribed to this channel, please do. Go through my previous episodes. This is maybe the 9th or 10th episode I am delivering. And there is a scheme under which I go in these episodes. It takes you maybe 8 or 9 minutes. It's worth your time. As I mentioned earlier, human beings are the only species who can convince people by their communication, the power of communication. Sometimes, by listening to somebody, you may act in a particular way, later on you may regret because he kind of mesmerized you. Maybe he kind of made you to completely change your belief system. This is the power of the energy. This is the link between energy and public speaking. See you in the next episode.